Hello and welcome. It's episode 14 of Career Coaching After Hours. I'm your host, John Davidson, and I'm going to attempt to use my radio voice for our presentation today. So, thank you for joining me. Hard to believe that January is almost wrapped up, and hard to believe it's 2025. So, hope all of your New Year's are off to a really nice start. And a lot of different topics I'd like to cover in this session, this workshop, our presentation here this evening. So thank you for joining me. I'm going to rattle through more topics than I would typically bite off in any one particular episode. And I struggled a little bit coming up with one single theme for this particular presentation. Here it is. We're starting off 2025. A lot of changes economically, politically, lots of really interesting stories in the news the last few months, last few weeks, last few days. And so I'm going to try to tackle some pretty diverse topics, everything from Blue Origin, launching Rocketships, and ghost jobs and Ghostbusters, and even some purple dragons, among some other topics. So buckle up, everyone. Looks like 2025 is starting with a bang. All right. So as usual, a few disclaimer slides. What is this series? It's Career Coaching After Hours with John Davidson, and it's audience agnostic, so I'm probably not your career coach. If I am, thank you. But the idea here is this is almost therapeutic or meditative for me, maybe as much as the audience. So yes, I have my calming music going, and it's a bit of an unplugged approach. So no clickbait here, no wild sound effects, and I may throw out ideas that might not be a great idea for your career development needs or professional development needs. And as usual, everything is to the best of my knowledge. Check those sources, they're loaded up in the presentation here, and feel free to talk back as you like. So like, comment, subscribe if you have thoughts, or maybe I'm off base or I've missed something. Feel free. This is open forum, if you will. All right. Yes, we are in 2025, and one of the big topics I see popping up again here this year is maybe a throwback, maybe nothing new, but ghost jobs or fake jobs. And so if you've been watching the news, maybe you saw the Wall Street Journal, several other outlets, Fox Business, etc., have picked up this ongoing story that maybe ghost jobs weren't a thing from strictly the past, 2023, 2024. Here they are again. And so starting to seem like the stats are roughly 1 in 5 or 20% of at least private sector jobs might be ghost jobs or fake job postings. And I've done presentations on this topic before, how to spot ghost jobs, maybe how to circumnavigate the process a little bit to try to figure out if you're applying to a live job where you could be hired, or maybe what some organizations are doing is keeping job posts up, maybe even after a hire has been made, or almost in a hopeful fashion, so that they can kind of build a backup roster of talent. So on one level, I don't think jobs are necessarily, ghost jobs rather, are necessarily a terrible, horrible thing if they're used kind of tactfully in that kind of regard where recruiters actually are reaching out to folks. But arguably, if there isn't a real job behind the job description, then take it down. They really can make job seekers' lives pretty darn difficult. And so a bit frustrating out there. Certainly I've been dealing with this for years. This concept isn't new, and I know that's been the bane of many job seekers. But maybe now more than ever, it's more important to dig a little deeper. And when you see a job description, maybe try to figure out if there's a real person behind it. Maybe there's a comment on LinkedIn that you can trace it back to, or maybe that organization has actually ponied up some dollars on Glassdoor or Indeed or LinkedIn for that job, so that it's not just on that organization's careers page. they've actually shelled out some cash. That's often an indicator of probably a more legitimate job. Why post it on a third-party site if it's fake or if it's a ghost job? That kind of thing. So be aware of that. So some interesting articles there. They may not be going away. We've seen some really interesting shifts in the job market and some interesting data from the Bureau of Labor Statistics as well. Topics for another time, maybe. But yeah, another really, really interesting story that I think goes beyond the PN dub. Of course, I'm based in the Seattle area here, in the upper left-hand part of the country. But Blue Origin this year, just this month, launched the new Glen successfully. So thumbs up for Blue Origin and Jeff Bezos. But I think not only is it interesting to see a lot of the Blue Origin jobs popping up and kind of how interested folks are in those jobs like on LinkedIn, but maybe some of how space jobs and the space industry is really started to heat up. And so certainly I've seen that on LinkedIn and online. More interest in SpaceX as well, Elon Musk's outfit, but also some of the subcontractors and startups that feed or fuel concepts like reusable rockets or somehow supply some of the big players like Blue Origin or SpaceX. And I think it's easy to forget that the newest branch of our military is the Space Force. So there's that. But Blue Origin, I think, is maybe especially special here to folks in the Pacific Northwest. Of course, they're based here, and somewhat like Amazon, they have kind of that bi-coastal kind of roots, where, of course, Amazon's headquarters, one, is here in Seattle in Pacific Northwest, but they also have an HQ too, and of course, all the rockets are being blasted out of the sky there in Florida for the most part, last I checked. But I did do a post on this, and I think it's just really interesting to consider that as a career path where you've got some of the richest people in the world getting a little insane, maybe, and breaking rules and kind of going fast and breaking things, as it were. So I think it's worth doing some research into that, even if you don't want to work for NASA or SpaceX, but it's certainly a really interesting trend as we kick off 2025. So there we go. Again, I might do a whole presentation on that at another time. So speaking of going fast and breaking things, perhaps if you've been on LinkedIn recently, or if you're here on the West Coast, you might have seen one of kind of the sleeper stories or the sleeper viral stories pop up regarding the University of Washington. And I have a special place in my heart for UW. That's where I did undergrad. But there's a really interesting story that popped up over very, very bright student named JD who created an app that was essentially better than what the University of Washington had in terms of helping students schedule classes and maybe even trade or swap classes. And I thought it was really interesting how the University of Washington treated the situation. And arguably they went kind of nuclear. But my whole point there is UW isn't just an innovator or a hotbed of talent, or a startup furnace, if you will. I mean, we've got lots of bright, intelligent humans, young humans, humans of all different ages. So it's really this catalytic engine of talent across the PN dub, but maybe it's also an employer. So maybe it's not all that often where we see kind of some HR issues or kind of how we treat students or employee type issues featured so prominently in the news. And so, like I say, maybe you saw this on LinkedIn. GeekWire picked it up. King5 NBC picked it up here locally. But I think that's actually a really interesting story that for folks who are into the future of work or HR actually might want to take a look at, where what happens when you have a talented young employee or a young student build a system that's superior or improved over the old system. Maybe we treat that with a little bit more respect. So really proud of how he handled himself. I think it's ultimately kind of a feel-good story where he demonstrated some real tact and poise. But if you're into kind of employment type issues like I am, you might want to check that out. I mean, that's maybe one of the UW's signatures is innovation, just like the Pacific Northwest. So I think worth checking that out. So another story that maybe I could have done a whole presentation on, but I'll try to keep it brief. And then another topic I wanted to touch on is this, this kind of deluge that happens typically at the beginning of the year. Usually see a lot of these articles pop up in January, February, March, kind of Q1, if you will, where the ratings are out. It's the attack of the ratings. And you'll see Built-in and Fortune and Forbes and the Puget Sound Business Journal kind of launching their different lists for best companies to work for. But one, and I haven't done an article yet, but this did come out here in January, is Seattle Business Magazine. Used to be its own standalone print publication. I really enjoyed it. It used to be a free subscription here in the PNW, but they merged up with Seattle Magazine, and I appreciate their rankings. So what I might nudge folks to do, whatever locality you're in, so whatever metro area or part of the country, maybe take a look at some of the other publications locally that rank best companies to work for. Not all of us need to work for who Fortune says is the best company to work for, or builtin.com or Forbes, what have you, or even a Fortune 500. It just doesn't necessarily have to be a large organization. So it's neat to see kind of these rankings of hometown favorites, small and medium-sized companies as well, where maybe even going beyond Glassdoor reviews, we can maybe learn a little bit more about benefits or work-life balance, and I think that's actually really healthy. So that way maybe you can compare your compensation, your work-life balance to some of what else is out there. Maybe we are all free agents to an extent. And so, of course, another item in the news that I might dive into even a little bit more is return to office. We have Amazon, one of our major employers here in the PNW, which has nudged everyone arguably to get back to the office. So, and that's changing even, traffic patterns or real estate patterns throughout downtown and throughout the east side. So there's a link right there. And so I do believe I'll do some writing about that topic later. And so, yeah, if you have some favorite rankings that you'd like to share, that'd be great. But certainly expect those. Oh my gosh, the cavalcade of ratings for 2025 are out. And maybe someone can explain to me how we have these lists of best companies to work for 2025 in January. Is that a little too soon? I don't know. But I applaud their efforts. So I think really nice list there. So thank you very much for joining me. Relatively brief episode, and hope you enjoyed this. Some of the topics, kind of a roundup, or I hesitate to call this a mukbang. I don't think that's technically what this is, but just kind of rocketing through a whole bunch of different topics here as we kick off 2025. So I'll roll through a couple of sources here that I typically cite. And if you'd like to reach out to me, there's my email address and my website's there, olympicresume.com, architectinfinity.com. And as always, as usual, I should say, thank you, Ghostrifter. Very nice music. Go check out Ghostrifter. Support, like, and subscribe. And thank you for joining me. If you have ideas for future episodes, I'm all ears. And a special thanks to all of my clients, as well as my supporters, and you, the viewers, my students too, but you, the viewers. So messages or contacts are appreciated, and super excited for 2025. Like I say, I hope yours is off to a really nice start. And I'll see you on the next episode. Okay, take care, everyone. Be well. Thank you very much.